This is a story that I guess will be very, very interesting to people, to a lot of people, whether you have aging parents, whether you find yourself in a situation like this. A non-invasive treatment, and it takes only 20 minutes, that could reverse memory loss. This is according to a brand new study. That is incredible. Let's try to find out more. Robert REINHART is a lead researcher at Boston University on this project. Mr. REINHART, thanks very much for being with us today. As we both reacted the same way, 20 minutes, non-invasive, and could reverse memory loss. This seems a gigantic development.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes. 20 minutes each day for 4 days in a row was the intervention, but we did see significant enhancements in both short-term memory and long-term memory, with effects lasting for at least 1 month. So we're cautiously optimistic that this could translate into a real therapy for people suffering from memory disorders.
So up until now, what did we think? What was the technique being used, and how successful was it?
There's no cure for Alzheimer's disease. There are a few medications that can manage the symptoms, but there's really not that much available for people with age-related pathologies. And there are a few things, probably the most helpful for healthy age-related decline that we all will experience is prevention. Pound of prevention is worth an ounce of cure. Mm-hmm. So that's really in terms of diet and lifestyle. But for people with severe memory disorders, there's not much available, which is where we come in, trying to build something that's drug-free with minimal to no side effects like this new procedure.
Okay, so a 20-minute non-invasive treatment. Tell us a little bit more about how it works. I understand you wear a cap.
Yeah, you come into the lab. We fit you with what amounts to a swimmer's cap, and embedded in it are a series of electrodes. They're configured in a specialized manner, so we apply extremely weak and safe electrical current to certain regions of the brain at a particular frequency. And when we apply that into the front of the head at high frequencies, we can improve long-term memory, and then at lower frequencies toward the back of the head can improve short-term memory. During the stimulation, you feel like a light, itching, tingling, poking, warming sensation. And then your skin habituates to that in about a minute or so, and you feel nothing. So this is a really impressive tool in the sense of how attractive its safety profile is.
And how do you measure in terms of what, you can say, we can actually tell that someone's memory has improved?
Yeah, we use a really classic test that they use in neurology and psychiatry and in the basic sciences, which is called free recall, where I read you a list of 20 words, and you try to freely recall as many as you can in no particular order from that list. And what's been known for decades is that the words you remember on the first section of that list link to one memory system, and then the words you remember later on the list link to another memory system. Long-term memory are the first few words, short-term memory are the last few words.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Okay, and so you did this. You did this list of 20 words, and I understand you did it 20 minutes for 4 days in a row. So does that mean it's not like a one-time deal here, right? This would be a series of treatments that has this effect, or what happened over those 4 consecutive days? I guess is a better question.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We usually do those one-off, like single-shot interventions, where it's just like a 20-minute dose. But this time, we decided to do it repeatedly. And there's some basis for that in the literature in terms of increased benefits. And we saw the benefits just gradually ramping up with each passing day of stimulation. And so it's extraordinary. And the rate of improvement that you see over these 4 days in the memory benefits predicts how large of a benefit you'll see 1 month later. So potentially that could be really informative to a clinician in a doctor's office one day in terms of like the responsiveness that a patient might have to the intervention, like while it's happening, to know something about what the benefits will be to memory down the road.
So I'm thinking if that's the case, and in a perfect world, you'd be able to do this on your own at home if you have to do this treatment all over. Is the idea to eventually develop it to that point?
Absolutely. That's a really kind of tantalizing future translational option, because this is a technique that's lightweight, It's relatively easy to use, train people to use, inexpensive, as compared to other neuroscience techniques. Like transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, is maybe the one most familiar to your viewers, but this is transcranial alternating current stimulation. Is a newer class of electrical non-invasive stimulation methods, and it's actually incredibly lightweight. So there's some systems about the size of like a deck of cards or a loaf of bread, and it's easy to, and you could imagine kind of streamlining it, making it more wearable so a patient could take it home.
Okay, now you just brought up cost, which I never even thought to ask. So if we eventually got there, how costly a process would this be?
Yeah, I mean, we're very far from that. This is kind of like a first promising step. We don't know a lot of things like how does it translate to other memory tasks? Is it correlate? Is it important for like real world functional endpoints, the kind that matter the most? How long do the effects really last? So it's really kind of a proof of principle and first step, but there's nothing wrong, I think, with like projecting into the future and thinking about things if they do become commercialized and available in a doctor's office. And so compared to other tools, it is relatively inexpensive. I don't know what it would be if it was available to like the general public, but to for investigational purposes in the lab, it's relatively inexpensive, not as expensive as most other stimulation techniques.
I want to revisit something that we talked about right at the beginning of this interview. So this is not necessarily for people who have, quite, I'm trying to find a nice way to say it, but like advanced dementia. I suppose that's the best way to say it. This is for your normal aging memory loss, or is the idea that it could be applied across the board?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the study was in healthy older adults, 65 to 88 years old. Some people we note had cognitive scores in the range of mild cognitive impairment, right? This precursor to potentially Alzheimer's disease or another dementia. But the study was in healthy older adults. You're right. It wasn't a study in like a proper clinical population like Alzheimer's disease. That's actually what we're getting into now, clinical trials in the lab, to port this over and to see if it's could benefit people with real like age-related pathology.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
Imagine.
and this is kind of, I imagine this is the step you have to go through to prove a success here before you could actually move on and saying, well, this works in this group. Now let's move on to people who have a more serious problem as far as Alzheimer's is concerned.
Exactly. There's, for good reason, it takes a lot of time. We want to make sure it's efficacious and safe, so it goes through all the proper clinical trial stages before it becomes eventually potentially FDA approved and is available in the doctor's office.
I mean, is it weird to make, I just immediately kind of assume, well, if it's working on people with mild, age-related memory loss, would it not be safe to assume that it would work on people with Alzheimer's?
So one of the interesting findings of this same paper was that the healthy older people who showed the poorest cognitive functioning at baseline coming into the lab to begin with, they were the ones that had the largest benefit.
Wow.
At the 1 month time point and also like kind of right after the intervention at the 5 day time point. So it bodes well for potentially having success in an Alzheimer's disease population. So we're optimistic, but we're cautious because it is kind of qualitatively a different thing.
I mean, really exciting stuff. It must be. What's it like for you to be part of this project? It must be incredibly rewarding. Yeah,
it's extremely rewarding just to work with very bright young people in the lab. It's a kind of a ferment of social, intellectual interaction and challenge and excitement, and a special excitement when findings turn out like this, but also kind of calm satisfaction because science is a very slow thing, so we have lots of expectations about what the pattern of results will look like, but definitely love it.
Wow, it's exciting news, and I'm sure for people who find themselves, this age impaired or the age memory impairment that happens, this is wonderful news. I realize it's not happening tomorrow where you can go home and say, hey, there's a cure and I can make myself feel better or actually get better, but it's nice to know that it's in the pipeline. So thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kind of exciting,
I'm looking
isn't
at the cap. It's freaky deaky looking.
Yeah.
It looks slightly like something out of a...
But it's like you said, it's like a bathing cap, and it's got wires attached to it. So
some straps and wires, and it looks a little,
But the findings, it's exciting stuff.
It's unbelievable.
And the best part is it's measurable, right? That classic test. If it's working, then as they say, it's working. That's incredibly good news.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get